Mr. Chairman, we do have Pete Preston on the Zoom, and also Miss Heidi Kindle had text. It looks like she's running about 10 minutes late. We are recording and live streaming when you are ready, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. 30 seconds. Which will seem like 3 minutes.
Should jump right in. Let's fly right into this thing.
It is now 11 o'clock. We'll call the meeting of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners Finance and Administration Committee to order. We'll have the approval of the agenda. Had a chance to look at the agenda. Is there anything you'd wish to be added or deleted? We have an agenda. Let's do a call to the public. All familiar faces. Oh,
Sure. I just have one quick, brief comment and, about, I mean, I know we need to develop some type of a plan going forward as far as how we address the wage classification study. But until we do that, I think we need to, instead of making everybody wait and sit on hold for a year or more, I think we need to address things as they come. We have done that some in the past, and I think that we need to continue to do that and address the positions. We aren't giving someone or an individual a large raise. We're looking at things as far as a position and how that position can help the county grow. It isn't about giving someone a glorified paycheck. It's about their position in the county and how they can help the county grow.
thank you, Karen. Anybody else for public comment? Then we'll move on to our first item, if Heidi's available. She said she's going to be a few minutes late.
She is not.
So
She is not on.
why don't we just bump that down until she's online, and then we can take it up. But we will then move on. Is consider approving the intergovernmental agreement template between Isabella County on behalf of the Isabella County Register of Deeds, Isabella County local units of government to implement a digital delivery of a deed system and authorize the chairperson to sign the same. We have Mr. Pete Preston with us this morning, and you have Karen Jackson with us too, Register of Deeds. So tell us about the agreement. I know we've been trying to work behind the scenes to get our database more in line with the needs of the townships in the county. So.
Correct. What we've had over the past few years is a lot of printing. So the normal process has been for Karen's office to print a copy of a deed, which the assessor and equalization needs to have to know that there's been a transfer of property. We need to know what percentage of property is transferred. It helps us work with title, land divisions, etc. It's part of our essential service or essential need to do our jobs. So Karen's office has printed off a copy for the assessor, printed off a copy for equalization. Equalization would then take that copy and mark it up and scan it into our system. Some of the assessors still needing another set of printed deeds from our markup. And our markup is essentially to say, we think this was 100% transfer. There's a legal description issue, something to that effect. So what, working with Karen's office, what we've come up with is that we'll keep a semblance of that process where equalization will have access to Register of Deeds digital system. Then we will enter that deed in digitally, no hard copy, and we'll enter it into BS&A. And then if there's an issue, we'll flag it in there. And then we will provide the assessor a copy of the digital deed as well as what we did there. And then, so instead of the assessor getting it directly from Register of Deeds, they're gonna get it through equalization. Since Register of Deeds, that's their essential function, is to have those deeds. When we provide a digital copy to the assessor, we want to make sure that we protect Karen's office and her essential function. And so that's what legal counsel for the county has come up with, is an intergovernmental agreement that the assessor essentially will not share that copy. If that copy is FOIA'd, then there's a payback to Register of Deeds again for their essential function of keeping a recorded document. So what this does in essence is get rid of a lot of paper.
Okay. So when you entered into BSNA, does that go up? Is it the just the digital vision? Is it a cloud vision, a version of it, or how does that work?
Well, we have bsna.net, where we're not on the cloud version yet. So part of the issue that we have is that the indexing and Register of Deeds needs a lending hand. So having it come through equalization, we're going to be able to work with Register of Deeds as to where this particular piece of property is located. And then, and I think we have mostly these issues with plats and subdivisions and villages and such. So we'll essentially be the first line there, and we'll take the digital deed, we'll enter it manually into BSNA, which we all do. We don't have the software, it's fairly expensive, that would actually scan that deed and enter it in automatically. So Kelsey would essentially take that deed, enter it in, and then put that deed in a folder and then print out a report. We're still working on that, whether it's every 2 weeks or monthly, and give that report that says, here's what we did. And therefore the assessor is able to check and balance us, and we're able to work with Register of Deeds to make sure that we get some sort of, some indexing prowess, so to speak.
Okay. This makes sense to me. Karen, you want to add something?
So the indexing thing that he's talking about is our indexing is complete. We have a tract index. So it's not about our records. It's about the transfer. There's a BSNA transfer where they can pull our information over. But in order to do that, we have to have information on our end as far as what documents or what plats are in the city of Mount Pleasant. We have everything. We've deciphered what plats, and we've been putting them in file folders for, been here for 32 years. For 32 years, we've been putting them in a file folder. The computer has no way of knowing what defines the city of Mount Pleasant, and the city has never given us any type of boundaries as far as what are the boundaries for the city of Mount Pleasant. And so that's kind of a guessing game. And so there's not a way for us to put those definitions into our end of our program so that when they pull it on their end, that it's going to go into that correct folder. So what Pete's talking about is they're having to do it on their end because we don't have a way to define it on our end, essentially. And we just got information. This is only going to be a temporary solution. Unfortunately, because House Bill 5724 has already been passed, and when everybody comes back in September, they figure it's going to go through the Senate, and that's the Judicial Protection Act, which means that when they file, we have to either we're going to have two ways we can do it. We can either redact anything that has their name, tax ID number, address, anything that identifies the property or the person on the document, which means that it can't be indexed. So we can't have any of that information, which that's going to be difficult for Pete to pull anything through, or for the townships. And then also or we can totally shield the document, which means through the public access, they won't be able to do that. So we're gonna have to, at some point, this is a great starting point, but at some point, we're gonna have to probably get that BSNA piece worked out, because there is provisions for intergovernment work-throughs, whereas there isn't for the public. What Pete's talking about, this first initial solution is going through public access. Public access will be closed for those types of things. But government, like intergovernmental access, will not be closed. That'll be open because they know you have to do some type of taxing. You have to be able to provide those people that type of access. But as far as the public, if someone files under that judicial act, and right now it's only judges, people that work in courts, that type of thing. In some states, as soon as that passed, there are 92, in some states, 92 protected groups that filed afterwards. So it can snowball. We're hoping that doesn't happen here, but in case it does, we need to have a backup plan. But this is a good start, and I don't have any issues with it at all. I'm in complete agreement sliding onto it. It's basically a good way to get this started, get things in place, and get things going so that we can get that open to the public. I had talked to Pete about giving all of the townships access so that they can go in. What Pete and I talked about is giving them access just to search, so that they don't print everything. Their printed documents will come just from Pete, because he wants them to get the documents where he has given them the information, the additional information that he needs them to have. But I would still let them have searching abilities so that they can go back in, because if something is messed up, something doesn't make sense, they can go back in and search and see, hey, wait a minute, what went wrong? It behooves all of us. And I know people have a problem with allowing access, but these are public records. If it benefits the public, my policy is allow them to have access.
So we have a township that doesn't want to sign it.
Then they don't get access. Pete would probably still give them, would you still give them copies if they don't sign, Pete?
Well, the part of it is that, we're providing a digital copy directly from Register of Deeds system. And that's where we're at right now. Yes, I think that we've had some assessors come in and talk about, why don't just give us, access to Register of Deeds. It sounds like Karen is looking at that as an option too. For me, looking at this as taking little steps at a time. Figure out this before we just go gangbusters on the open access. So in 2 or 3 months, there's definitely, the opportunity then for them to do fully. We'll just all be online, and we'll just send the report because they have access directly through our Register of Deeds. We've been moving pretty fast here in the last couple months, so we wanted to take some steps. So as we do not want to withhold any information from the assessors. This step right now is purely for us to just go digital. As far as access to Karen's system, how much she wants to have them be able to go in there, I think this intergovernmental agreement covers that, but we can doubly make sure with Mr. Perone that component is covered. But I went into this just to take our first step, just for our digital delivery of the deeds after we process. I did not mean to infer in any way that Register of Deeds had an incomplete index. That only I think that we can help as we all evolve with this new digital way.
Questions on this particular item?
Is there still gonna be a comparison compare county and township files to print taxes off of? I mean, if they're gonna,
Can you hear the question, Pete?
No, I cannot.
You want to come up, Steve?
my concern is, is there still gonna be a comparable before they print taxes on the information that they're entering, the information that we're entering?
That's the intent is for us to be on the same page on a month-to-month basis. What we'll still run into, which is always the case, is that someone will call equalization and say, my address is incorrect. And our process is to send out to the assessor, hey, this address is incorrect. Same thing, somebody calls into the assessor, hey, my address is incorrect. They send us something. We all know we miss emails. We all know we get interrupted before we hit send. So there are always, going to be missing addresses. The volume that we saw after the summer tax bills, I didn't hear of anything outrageous, but I think a lot of those had to do with our first foray into it, whether it was using the county database or the township database. Either way, you're going to get returns. Kelsey has been working with individual treasurers and assessors doing a database compare to get them shored up. Some townships have just driven forward and done the same thing or asked us for an export to compare their databases. So it's taken some manual effort, but this intent is to keep kind of the status quo except digital as we figure things out and what works best for all.
I just know we get it on, after the fact, and we send out a lot of mail that is not correct. We had, I think, some software glitches within there that had pulling different files into addresses and putting people's names and stuff in there as well. And I just want to make sure that there's a comparison done and that, we're checking that whoever it is, that's going to check that, and that we're all online to use the correct database when we print those bills. Thanks.
Yeah. And a lot of this is the evolution of BSNA too. As some of you know, BSNA now has a new cloud product. That cloud product between the assessor and the local treasurer makes life much easier. It's real time. When one of them makes an address change, they know what the other one did. The county's on .net, and I imagine might be for a little bit. I don't hear of too many counties switching through the cloud system yet, but I'm imagining when the county does either willingly or voluntarily go with the cloud, that Steve's system and our system will be matched up as well.
Okay, any questions on this agreement? The only thing I do want to bring up is you gave us an update at our last committee meeting on the effort to the township doing their own mailing and of the tax bills, and I had made a comment. I thanked you for your presentation. I made a comment. I hadn't heard anything back from anyone, so I thought everything went rather smoothly. Well, I guess people watch the committee meetings because all of a sudden I've got 3 contacts, and so I met with these individuals, and they expressed some issues that I'm thinking it's not a criticism of Preston Community Services, but maybe there's some issues that we still need to work through. And I'm going to suggest that to the county administrator that we get together in a face-to-face meeting with at least a couple of these people to find out how we can work through this. You were right. It's been a hectic 2-3 months, and the townships have had to take on this role after we privatized. And I'm aware that a lot of the townships are having some officer changes, and these people come in without any experience. I'm thinking we need to have some additional training, and I know that's not in the contract, so it's something maybe the county may have to fork up some dollars, but we may need to have 2 or 3 additional trainings once the election is over and before the next tax bills are due, which is a very short window. But we kind of need to talk about that, because I think once we work through these bugs and get everybody working in the same direction, it should be easier in the future. But give some thought to that. We'll give Administrator Frost ability to give you a call and schedule some type of meeting, if that's okay.
Absolutely. We want this train to keep rolling here. I mean, I think that yeah, there's been some ups and downs, and you know, three downs out of this many units. I'm okay. Let's keep trying to work it through.
Let's not use a number because we'll probably get more calls. But I appreciate it. I know you're, because I've known you for so many years, I know you're a good professional, and we'll work with the county to kind of work out the remaining bugs and try to bring some of these new people on.
Now you're gonna get
Hopefully
more
once
calls.
we-
You called me professional.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you get us a discount somehow, but thank you, Pete. Do we have a motion?
I will move that we consider approving the intergovernmental agreement template between Isabella County on behalf of the Isabella County Registrar of Deeds and Isabella County local units of government to implement a digital delivery of deeds system. Authorize the board chairperson sign the same to our report.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It moves forward. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank
No, thank you, and thank you, Karen, if you're still there for attending.
So you see her, she raised her hand.
Okay, take care, all.
Thanks.
Do we have Heidi on?
We do.
So then we'll move to item number 4. Consider approving prime contract change order number 24 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $19,728 and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. Morning, Heidi.
Good morning. Thank you for being accommodating for me. Our meeting ran a little late this morning.
We can rock and roll.
Thank you. In front of you, you have PCCO number 24. As Mr. Jerry Jahinski had said, that it's a total of $19,728. This includes PCO number 138 in the amount of $10,915. This is for adding condensate drains and pumps for the air conditioning units that are needed in the IT rooms and in the master control rooms for equipment. Those items were not on the drawings. That item is taken from buyout, so there's no add to the project. The next item is on the list is PCO number 150. This is for the safe room that's in back of the Sally Port there. There was no sprinkler head shown in there, and the local fire marshal requested that we add one in that room. To add that in there was $1,566. That item is also taken from buyout. Next item on the list is PCO number 162. This is the amount of $5,285. The main entry canopy, there was a conflict on our architectural drawings. It showed it to be surface mount, and actually we needed to recess. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. It was shown to be recessed, and we actually needed a surface mount like fixture to work way the metal panels were built. And that item was also taken from buyout. And then we had PCO number 164. We needed to provide a surface mount like fixture in that canopy there, shown on the drawings as recessed. So we had to make some changes for lighting fixtures. And that was an add of $3,422. And that also came from buyout. And then the last item on our list here, our construction cleaning company that will be doing the final cleaning on the project once we are complete. They could not get a payment performance bond. Their contract with us is under $50,000. So we were not concerned with them, and we work with them quite often. They also work over at CMU cleaning several buildings there. So we took that deduct to remove the bond of $1,460 to add back to the buyout line. Yeah, so that gives us a total of $19,728. Any questions?
And I think we still have buyout remaining of $31,630.
That is correct. And we are about 85% complete with construction. And we still have about 37% of our bio contingency remaining, with about 15% left of construction to do.
Questions or comments? I know we just got through a very, I want to pick the word. We just came through an election where we had 3 renewals of the county that one of the oppositions to it, I found writings on entries on Facebook, was critical of all the change orders for the correctional facility. And all those change orders were still net to the good. No, so it's a credit to Clark Construction, to the sheriff, to Mike Faber, to Commissioner Embry, that have worked so hard, diligent on this project, that we're 85% the way there, and we still have some buyout. I'm thinking we'll probably eventually use that buyout up, but I'm thinking we're still gonna finish this project on budget or under budget. So I appreciate that. And for the person that's so critical, you know, why can you be critical when you're still $31,000 ahead of the game? Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will make the motion to consider approving prime contract change order number 24 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $19,728 to move that to the work session next Tuesday. Support. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. It moves forward.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
Our next item is discussion regarding the request to restructure Gold Key Volunteer Program. Commission on Aging, request made Director Jen Crawford, who's with us this morning.
Good morning. So
there.
I just, after bringing this item to you last Tuesday night at the board meeting, I just wanted to come before all the committees today just to get a little clarification for myself, and to offer any clarification if there happens to be any questions. But basically, in a nutshell, what my request was to eliminate the office clerk position that we currently have in our Gold Key program, and then replace it with a program supervisor. The reason that I'm requesting that is that program of just 2 individuals now is serving over 325 volunteers. The office clerk position, when it first was created, was merely an office clerk. They handled the calls of the program and scheduled transportation only. Because of the demand and the increase, just in the last 2 years of our whole program as a whole, we've received a 25% increase in individuals contacting us for service. And we know that that's going to continue to increase as the baby boomers are here. The older adult population continues to grow, will continue to grow, and our need is going to continue to grow. When we were evaluating job descriptions and we put the information down as far as what all of our positions are doing, this office clerk position is doing the work of a program supervisor. And I know that because we have program supervisors on staff at the Commission on Aging already. And the duties and responsibilities of this position have morphed into exactly those of a supervisor. And we need it to be that. We need it to be that with the demand of the program. So that was my request. This has absolutely nothing to do with wage study. Absolutely nothing. And like I said earlier, I have a list of staff who are underpaid egregiously from that. And that is totally a separate discussion. And I will be fighting for that and bringing that forward on behalf of my team. But for right now, this has nothing to do with that. This is merely me as a department head coming to you and saying, these are the needs that we have here at the COA. We have the funds to support them in our budget without dipping into any of our funds. And this would help us be able to meet the need of the older adults that we're serving. So I don't know if there's questions that I can answer, anything I can offer more regarding this.
Just one question. You said a 25% increase in requests for service
Yes.
in what time frame?
The last 2
When?
years.
The last 2 years. Okay. 325 volunteers is
That's a
a
lot.
fair amount of people to supervise.
It's a lot. And so we're relying on this office clerk position is no longer just taking scheduling phone calls. It is actually completely managing the entire transportation program, which means helping to recruit, helping to train, and then actually doing all the scheduling and overseeing them. And then also helping with the scheduling of all the other volunteers. So in the, where it started, it met the need of what we had at the time. And now it's not meeting that need anymore.
Discussion.
I understood what we were asking for. Makes sense.
I sat in for the chairman this morning at the Human Resources and Public Works Committee meeting.
I appreciate that too, by the way.
You're welcome. I know you have to earn a paycheck too. You're not getting it from the county. But what I brought up at that time is it's a difficult time. And yes, we may have made some of these decisions in the past, but people are watching us. It's the impression that we're giving, that we're saying yes to some, no to others. It's that perception. And we have a weight study that should be done hopefully rather quickly, that we might be able to start making some movement on. But I'm comfortable with doing this. And as a former department head in Parks and Recreation, I know if I have a staff person that needs additional money, yeah, you can go with a pay increase request, or you can come with a restructuring. A good department head is going to be able to work around anything that they perceive that get by the county board for approval. And we've had other positions that we've now consistently saying, let's wait. There's a lot of worthy positions in the county that probably are underpaid. Some of them that's going to come out of the general fund. It's not going to fare very well, I don't think, unless we find some additional funds. The ones that are coming out of a millage-based budget or enterprise fund, there's more dollars available and it's not going to impact us. But we need to have all these. We need to have a policy, which we don't have. And I just, again, at this point, I'm uncomfortable saying yes, even though I know you need it. Maybe there's some way you may be able to hire a new position. I know we have a hiring freeze on, but you certainly can make an argument for a new position to maybe a temporary position to help that for a while. I don't know, but that's my position on it. I'm not opposed to this, but I know there's a lot of people standing in the background, and I know that our resources in the future are going to be limited. It's going to be difficult. We need to have a policy. And so it's clear in your mind. It might be clear in my mind, in other commissioners' minds, but people are going to have their own perception on it and their own interpretation. And that's what troubles me.
This request is a bit different, I think, than the other ones. This position, this is a supervisory position. It's pretty clear to me. It's not a clerk position, obviously. So I wouldn't have any problem moving it forward. I understand everything that Commissioner Jelzinski just said. This one's a little bit different in my mind.
I do suspect the way Wade study is looking at the position in its current format and not as a reclassification, which is kind of the issue too that could slow that up if we have to go back and say, okay, what about this? But
We talked about too this morning that if a position was vacant, maybe the perception would be different. I think we did get a little wrapped up in the person probably and thinking about a person and not necessarily a position, but it's important to consider what the needs are of the organization. Certainly, but we talked this morning in other committees about me being tasked, I believe by this committee, to develop a policy for wage study implementation that would speak to a lot of this. We talked a little bit this morning about having a special meeting of the board to kind of vet through that policy, because I don't know that there's ample time in any committee or in a full board meeting. It's
Mhm.
deserving of its own time, and you're gonna probably want to hear from your departments and electeds in that process too. But as soon as we present the budget next Tuesday, and once that monumental effort is behind us, we'll start plugging away on this policy and set a meeting to further it, so that it's not years down the road. Clearly, we're being told to wait for that wage study, even though you've made a very clear distinction between this request and that.
So I know the feeling coming out of human resources and public works was to wait. I don't know how the criminal justice and county affairs, how it came out, because I think we need to make a decision whether or not we move this forward and have it flop on its face at the meeting or the work session, or to withdraw it at this point until we have the policy.
At this point, I think we've tabled it, correct,
Correct.
at our board meeting, so. I mean, that's where it sits at the moment until we bring it forward.
Mhm.
So,
But you could do that through committee
you know.
action.
Mhm.
If you want you could do it now, you could do it at a future time, so that it's discussed again at full board after the clarifications given today.
Well, my counting heads, I'm not sure about the two fellow commissioners now, but up to this point, we're looking at probably 3 positions that are in favor of waiting, which is not a majority. I think we have one commissioner that feels that maybe should be moved on for consideration. I don't know how Commissioner Engler or Commissioner Swaney feel about it.
I think it was divided. I think it's fair to say it was divided. But nothing moved, no motion came from that committee either.
Well, this is a discussion, so.
It is, and you're right, it is tabled at the board level, and can bring that back at any time you choose, or bring it up through committee. Either way.
So how do you feel, Commissioner Embry? Right now, it looks like it's at best a 4-3.
Yeah.
In favor of waiting.
That's kind of where we're at right now, until I think everybody wants to get through this process of the budget, get through this process of how we're gonna roll out the wage study. And I'm sorry you got caught up in this, but I think that's the general consensus, is that we want to kind of get our foundation squared away, and then have everybody come in and start bringing these reclassifications and these restructures and that kind of thing, bring them in afterwards. It seems like that's the sentiment.
Well, if your policy is on how you're gonna address and implement the wage study, then there shouldn't have to be subsequent things brought forward, right? If the wage study's comprehensive and we're implementing, yeah.
Should be.
So we're looking at maybe a 5-2 now, then. I do have one more question. I know you've got your clerical, and then you've got a director's position for the old
We have a program manager
program
and an
manager?
office clerk currently.
Okay, so how come the program manager isn't doing some like the training?
She is, but there's over 325 volunteers. And there's so many different areas that they have volunteers in. So the program manager is also doing that. She's also working on the recruiting aspect and getting new volunteers. We have to go through background checks and get all that stuff done too. But so it is the office, she is relying on the office clerk to oversee the entire transportation portion. And we have so many other areas of volunteers that they oversee as well, for having over 300 now.
So I don't know if this warrants, maybe we should have that position looked at as a supervisor, and then also do the other position too, to see if it changes the balance on the responsibilities of those.
I'm not sure I follow you.
Well, if the clerical position is taking on some of the responsibilities that normally would rest with the supervisor, do we need to have those 2 positions reevaluated in the wage study?
I think they would have been reevaluated in the wage study.
But as a clerical
Yes.
position though, right?
We updated job descriptions. We updated job descriptions based on roles that are actually happening. That's what all of the
Okay.
program managers went through their teams and we submitted updated job descriptions based on roles that are currently being done.
Okay, I didn't realize that. I was thinking it was based on the old position description or something.
So the need and the reality of what is actually happening is need two program managers. Not a program manager and an office clerk.
We would need a program manager and then a supervisor, which is what we have
Okay.
in some of our other departments, other teams.
Which a supervisor is under the manager.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which is a little different
Mm-hmm.
title.
Yep.
So is it up to this committee to recommend taking it off the table or just leaving it on the table?
It's been up to every committee today. So
Did anybody,
you can, nothing has come forward yet today. But your options are, it is just discussions, so there's not an action here, but certainly, as Commissioner Embry pointed out, there is a motion at the board level that was tabled out of work session last Tuesday.
so there could be, while it's a discussion, it could have action taken
Absolutely.
to recommend taking it out. So we'll entertain that to see if anybody would wish to make that motion.
Just run that past me again. I'm sorry.
So right now, the action with the board is, it's been tabled.
Mhm.
And the other two committees took no action after the discussion.
So it's still tabled.
I think it would behoove a committee, if we're going to take it, recommend taking it out of, what's the terminology? Help me.
Out of being,
Out of, being tabled.
Move it off the table.
Yeah, it would have to come from one of the committees. And it hasn't already, so it'd be up to this committee to make that recommendation to the board. We'd have to have a motion and a second, it would have to pass.
I'm okay with it being tabled for now.
I'd hate to see it bring forward, especially something that we feel that's warranted, but to have it come forward and have it fall flat in the work session and then have, just keep it up on the table. I don't know if there's some way you could come forward with a plan, some additional help with that right now for a while, or encourage your staff to be patient a little bit longer. I know it's a difficult position as a department head.
It's a tough position, yeah.
I do applaud you for coming to all three committees
Yes.
to set the record straight, clarify the conversation.
Thank you.
It was very valuable.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jen. All right. Discussion regarding the fiscal year 2025 budget draft number 3. We have a number this time. It's a sequential.
Oh, you know
increase.
what that means for me.
You're gonna go see what changed? Do you want the spoiler alert?
Yeah, I'll take the
This is-
spoiler alert. Yes,
This
please.
is not a lot of changes, so. You know, we were so close in the zero base, and then with draft number 2 that we brought back, we had. Increased revenues by about 400,000, decreased expenses by about 200,000, and that's where we became balanced at about $24.5 million. And really, the only conversations, we've had few conversations about dues and subscriptions, right? We've had conversations about membership and airport authority and MAC and NACO and those type of things. Those have been built in. We've built in internships. You know, the importance of that we built in the first quarter funding for road deputies. And the only 2 things that were left on the table really is what are we doing with hats and what are we doing with the senior assistant prosecuting attorney position. So really there's very few changes in this draft. They're all gonna be on page 2. Because I'm sorry, I think there is some changes on page 4 too, but as far as general fund, your changes are on page 2. Based on the discussion, what we've done is take from contingency and fund the prosecuting attorney position that's been previously funded by ARPA dollars, funded that out of contingency to the tune of $120,000. And also funded hats at the tune of $100,000 versus the $175,000 currently on contract. So that is now what's built into the budget, and that came out of contingency, leaving your contingency then just over $100,000. We've been talking for a while about the fact that that's why the contingency was left so high, was to consider funding some of those things. We've also talked about a few other things that aren't included in that, like a cost of living allowance increase or any wage study increases. Those are the only things that change, and so that changes your contingency, your PA, and your animal control department lines up each too. Feel free to keep looking for other changes, but to my mind, that's really the only thing that's changed in general fund. All the healthcare increases are built in now based on the insurance committee recommendation and the board's action to accept that recommendation. So that is built in. So I would look for any discussion to, anything you want to see changed before this goes in the packet for Friday. Anything changed before the
What was the amount we put in for hats again?
100,000? Currently, we're on contract for 175. We do know that we cannot take on their full functionality for probably even the $100,000. We do know in some informal talks with them that, they're aware that the county is looking at something lesser. We've had conversations with sheriff who believes, the same, that we can't do it for what they do. We still have to have some functionality there in a shelter. It's a start. We haven't moved the needle in a couple of months now talking about it, so this is where I feel the support is from the board and the conversations I'm hearing.
Senior prosecuting attorney was 110, correct?
120,000 for the senior assistant prosecuting attorney. Bless you. We
Bless
did briefly mention at the last board meeting last Tuesday, after I had just given the ARPA update, and then we rolled into the budget discussion, and it hadn't occurred to me prior to last Tuesday, but we could potentially use ARPA dollars towards funding that position. It is kicking the can down the road. It's not solving a long-term solution. It would just be a short-term solution. And that would be taking away ARPA dollars from, we've already said where those are going to go. So it would really be taking away probably at this point from the asbestos or the HVAC, the building remodel.
The double negative whammy, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul and then kicking the can down the road. I like the sound of that. Okay.
These things that were added back in, the hats and the senior assistant prosecutor were, I'm in agreement with those. I speak for the rest of the board, but personally, those are both necessary. We have to have hats run that shelter. There's no way that we can do it for even close to that.
You missed,
Even you part of.
I think you missed, there's no way you could do it.
There's definitely no way I could.
Okay. Point of clarification.
Point of clarification is your legal responsibility as chair.
Right, and,
Pointing that out.
okay, and being legally responsible for that function, there's no way that I could do it. For anywhere near close to that.
Right.
Just have to designate someone else for chair. Come on once. It's off your hands.
In the senior assistant prosecutor, that department's been understaffed for a few years now. Doesn't leave us with much contingency, and that causes us some heartburn. So we wanted to little bit healthier contingency.
Chairman?
Well, I know we've asked all the non-mandated and mandated departments to work with us on balancing the budget. And they have. And even the mandated departments have lost positions. And so in a way, I'm kind of troubled, because prosecuting attorney, this was the one thing that we were asking from the prosecuting attorney's office, and we're putting that back in right now without giving them an opportunity to maybe adjust the things that they do to have a savings. But what's most concerning to me is our contingency is down to a point that we can't even offer a decent COLA increase to employees. We don't have the money for it. Forget the wage study, forget anybody else's adjustment. We just don't have the money to do it. And that bothers me. I know we still have the possibility of solar farm revenues that we haven't quantified at this point. And that may have some effect, but it's still things that we're not seeing out of our zero-based budget that may come and bite us, that we need to make adjustments, and we're not gonna have the money for it. Much less some of the things that I think are very important.
Let me offer this. If we kept in the hats and kept the senior assistant prosecutor out, I would be agreeable to that plan. It wouldn't be my first choice, but I could go along with that.
One and not the other.
We have to do the hats. There's no way around it. We've been kind of dancing around that for months, but
I think we wouldn't like the reality without them.
Not a good situation.
I'm glad to, I share your concern, but I'm glad to hear you link that amount of contingency with not being enough, because you do have fund balance still, and you have a nice healthy fund balance, and if you can keep on your zero base, that fund balance should just stay right there, right? But it's there for the one-time things. It's really not there for a COLA, right?
Legacy
You-
thing.
Exactly, because that's gonna perpetuate and continue on.
Further draws down fund balance, which we need in order to get out of this mess in 4 to 5 years.
Yes, yes, and we haven't gotten out of it unscathed, right? Finance chairman and I were talking just recently about the bond rating for the county has gone down. Right? You can't spend like you've been spending for 10 years. You can't borrow that amount of money without considering that that's gonna be impacted. We're turning that around.
It'll come back,
Over time, I guarantee it will.
once we stay the course and work the plan.
Stay the course.
I do have a question, though, gentlemen. Madam Administrator, I know we did make a loan to Drains. How much was that?
150,
Was it-
well,
I thought it was
two
a
different
quarter.
things. There's a
Quarter
loan
million.
to the Lake Isabella water supply. That's being paid back. I think we're probably in one of the final years of the payback. It seems like that was a 5-year deal when they repainted the water tanks, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
And then maybe 3 years ago,
2
2 years ago. 'cause
I
you're
first came
here.
on board.
Yes, the drain commissioner came to increase the amount of money in their drain revolving fund.
Correct.
And we did not do an advance. We did a due to, due from, considering that would be
Paid
paid
back.
back. Yes,
Correct.
I believe that was an additional $150,000.
150? Okay, I was thinking it was $250,000, but 150,
Mhm.
if my thought was to start, I mean, I don't want to demand it comes back, but given our contingencies, $100,000, $150,000 back into that and go into contingency, and now we're at $250,000. And we're in a little bit better situation moving into the first fiscal year of a zero-based budget that's balanced. We still don't know the full ramifications if there are things that are gonna pop up during the course of this next year that you guys are gonna be in. So I think,
Well, I think
Something
we'd
to
have to take a
consider.
look to see if that could be paid, eventually it'll be paid back. It's due to, due from, but remember, one of the justifications for the increase was the volume of work, the cost of the work, they, you know, the drain, the revolving account they had wasn't great enough in scope to manage the cash needs.
But the flip side of that was they were behind on bill.
Yeah,
Those are
but
two
that's
separate
those two
things.
separate things. Lake Isabella water supply and drains, very, very
Very separate.
separate things.
So they weren't
And they've
behind on
been
their-
paying, the Lake Isabella, even though they're behind on billings, they've been paying back annual payment
So they're
on
not
that loan.
behind on the assessments for the drain projects that they're working
Oh,
currently?
no.
Okay.
No. Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
That would be an issue at audit time if they were behind, I
Behind on the
believe,
billing?
on assessments for drain work.
I don't know, just like I said, that would be something that you guys should consider.
Yeah, that's money on the table
Even,
out there.
even if it's $50,000 a quarter.
Mhm.
Over the next 3
You
quarters.
know, something else to consider too, we were unsuccessful in the spring 2% grant requests. And the tribe came back to educate this administration that they don't like to fund positions, right? I think that's something they taught us in the past and I had to relearn that. But so we know that we're not gonna apply to them for a senior assistant prosecuting attorney position. But what in the budget, what in general fund could we apply for this fall that could free up monies maybe for prosecuting attorney position? So I know that they're interested in helping. I think they're not gonna get past funding position, right? They're not gonna take that leap, but I think we could have some meaningful discussions about what could we apply for that would free up those dollars.
Sure. We have one other option too that we'll continue to work on. And I know this is gonna be not leave a good taste in some people's mouths, but we're looking at rebuilding the administration building and we've set aside $750,000. Now I know we're using a good portion of that for the payment for the road patrol deputies to the end of the year. But going on, it may mean that we have to be orphans for a number of years, but we could redirect those monies to the payroll, because I think that we're gonna have to address some way COLA and the wage study. And if that's the only source of funds we have, we may have to consider that moving on, just paying off what we invested so far, have the shell of a building sit there and we continue to rent the best we can. That is an option moving forward. And the prosecuting attorney's position, you know, maybe it's not a permanent solution, but maybe we could continue to support that for another year until we can get through some of this first year budget. It's difficult. It's really difficult.
It is, and I think once we decide on a layout, a building design and put a tight price to that, then we'll know our borrow, we'll go out for bids, we'll know exactly that. You know, 750,000, we believe that, you know, working with financial advisor and bond counsel, that's sufficient for a budget on that building, but obviously we're gonna have to stay within budget. Obviously, that bond rating is gonna hurt us a little bit, right? That we're gonna take a hit likely on our interest rate because of that a little bit.
Well, I've asked you this before a couple of times. What are we paying for rent?
200, I was just,
$250,000 a year.
240,000 between us and the prosecutor.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And we did, we have been in talks with landlords about renewing those, so we'll be bringing proposals soon.
The other consideration on the administration building, it looks like we're gonna be looking at perhaps 2 new commissioners that ran in opposition to doing anything with that building. Although I don't know, the one kind of in the town hall I didn't know enough, couldn't really make a decision. That I think that was Mr. Weber. But there's the thought that maybe we should go for millage. Well, good luck with that right at this point. But I mean, there's so much out there right now. And I mean, we've taken a lot of licks from, I think, undeservingly, but you may have to kowtow to some of this sediment out there. I don't know. There's no easy answers.
We have options. We don't have our head in the sand. And if you want to rebuild that building, we've got money in the budget to be able to make that annual bond payment.
Something to consider too, and I'm not discrediting your idea of letting the building just sit there, but it's an option. But the longer we wait to rebuild it, the more it's gonna cost.
Go up exponentially here in the next couple of years, I
Yep.
guarantee you.
It's not gonna
You'll be
get
looking at $1
cheaper.
million. Guaranteed. If you wait until 2026 or 2027, you'll be looking at $1 million a year rebuild for however long you run this bond.
Meantime, we're paying at least $250,000 a year for rent.
Save them at least.
There's storage units as well. They're not to the tune of that, but to add,
Mhm.
I don't know what that looks like right
Could
now.
be around $250,000 when you add them all up, probably a year, a little bit more maybe. So again, the net gain on that is 500,000 if we were to
Just-
max out. So you
Just something else to throw in for consideration.
It'd be nice to bring that up at the department head elected officials meeting to see if it's a building pay adjustments, COLA, see what the settlement is. I'm sure neither one of them are be overwhelmingly supported, but
Things you shouldn't have to choose
Or
between, right?
not supported.
That's that's up to us to provide that. I'm gonna move past general fund and go on to page 4. This is where your other funds, you see general fund at the top and expected to have a $15 million fund balance going into the fiscal 25 year that we should be able to maintain if we are on task with our zero base and you don't keep going back to the well. The other funds, for the most part, except Commission on Aging, are all using fund balance to balance. You'll see 2 changes on this page from draft 2. One is with Commission on Aging, because we built in some more expected revenues there. And their positioning is a little better than even presented in draft number 2. So when Director Crawford says she can afford those things, she really can. This is where you see that, right? The other funds, whether it be for one-time purchases or ongoing operations, are all dipping into fund balance to balance their fiscal 25 budget. You'll see at the bottom, recycling. We know there is a $315,000 appropriation from general fund going to the recycling fund. At last in draft 2, I think they were about 172-ish thousand in the hole. They've come about 75,000 to the good. So there's still a little work to do. They're still not balanced, even with our appropriation to them, right? So Director Borton continues to do his work there, kind of thinking on his own zero-based budget, a comment that came from one of our frequent public commenters about general funds doing zero-based, why aren't the other funds? So Director Borton is undergoing that right now. Are there any questions about these other major funds that we present to you? Next page is the personnel requests. For the most part, I think these are reclassification requests that are certainly tied to the wage study. We do have a request from the prosecuting attorney's office to maintain that senior assistant prosecuting attorney position. And we have a request from Commission on Aging for a new office clerk, and that would be a new position. That's the only request for new. The other requests kind of involve existing staff. I will be recommending that the office clerk for Commission on Aging be approved. The next 2 pages are capital improvement. The only capital improvement brought forward for general fund was the recovering of the trial court roof due to the monies that hopefully will be able to save us and give us a little more years of life on that roof. The following page are other funds, capital improvements. I noticed that Parks is the only department, but their bunk beds were pulled off. Was that because of the individual price of?
Yep.
Not considered a capital? Okay.
Yeah, we originally had it on there, but I think there's at $25,000 for the whole project. It's about 1,000 or maybe a little over 1,000 per bed, so it wouldn't qualify as our capital fund items being 5,000 or greater. So it's still in their budget,
That was
just
in there.
not on, there's a big, large capital project over $5,000 to approve.
Okay. And it looks like she just absorbed that into budget meeting, which is good. So then the only two existing capital projects for parks we've already been talking about. One is the Harris Park Spark Grant. What an improvement that's gonna be. I encourage everyone to get over there on the campground side. Check that out before these improvements are made.
Get a little
Great
before
things
that.
happen on the north side with the playscape over there. And of course, the sewer connection at Coldwater Lake Family Park.
Do they not know yet what that total bill for that sewer is going to be
No, they do not.
for the park?
No, they do not. It's not been finalized yet. Because then once it's finalized, it'll go to the township board, then there will be a referendum. Once that information is made public to the folks that are gonna be affected by the central drain sewer system, so. Haven't heard anything yet finalized.
Okay, so the only question I have is what's the pleasure on the prosecuting attorney's,
I could go along with leaving that off for now. I mean, we need to have some contingency. Your point about, we've asked for cuts from every other department. You've convinced me on that one.
Everybody should be pitching in. I just don't know if we pushed it back to the prosecuting attorney, could he rework his department expenditures? Similar to what the courts rework their entire setup. I don't know if he can, I'm just saying. I mean,
He has
it's a
that
pretty,
many that much pens and paper. you
Yeah,
know,
how
in
sharp
the
is it?
budget. It would be other staff.
right, it would be other staff.
But it would be, actually, I would imagine.
But have we approached him on the cuts that he could make? That's where I guess my question is there any room in there to offset some of the cost of this particular position,
I believe we've done that in our
We've done-
budgets that we had with.
right? So it's not a part of that one, so.
for-
I think it might involve more of the funding sources, right? Of seeking grants for funding sources, or maybe a 2% for something else that can offset monies. I think that's probably better route, because the cutting is
We're good, he's good there with where he's at, okay.
seemingly so.
I don't wanna, I mean, we're for cut to the bone, you don't wanna start cutting bone, so I understand.
I know we're making these decisions on the face of different arguments and without the knowledge of what is involved with each department. We don't know the in-depth workings of a department. We depend on the department heads to do that. I know the argument, he's gonna have one less full-time attorney than our public defender's office. I don't know if I can agree with that argument, because the public defender's office, they could cut one whole position and make it equal in that way and just have more contractual going out. Which when I look at public defenders' reports on different cases, I was the understanding that we would be doing 75 in-house, 75% in-house, 25% contractual. I look at the numbers, it doesn't look like that's occurring. It's like it's fewer than 75% in-house. And I don't know why. It could be just the different types of cases, but again, we don't know that. Probably would give us a headache if we tried to figure that out for every department, but I'm just thinking, we've asked everyone to participate in some manner, and it may require that there's a reduction of services. Maybe fewer misdemeanors that are gonna be prosecuted. I don't know, but I just hate to say, okay, we're gonna do this now and not do that for other departments too, that probably have similar arguments. And I just don't leave it out at this point. If it really is needed, see if we can't temporarily fund it out of money that we were gonna put into our building fund.
No, they're still vacant. Are they still vacant,
I
an
believe,
assistant prosecuting attorney position? Because
Seems so.
it
believe
seems
so.
like it to me, and so I'm really hopeful that the ARPA funded attorney would be able to be rolled into that available position, would be our hope. There's a vacancy that there wouldn't just be a termination of this now not funded position. Because there is a vacancy, be my hope, but certainly that's,
it looks like the
the purview of
vacancy
the
is an
office.
assistant prosecuting attorney as
as opposed to
as this
senior.
position in the budget is the senior assistant. prosecuting.
I know it'd be awful to lose somebody with the amount of experience that this grant has, but with the new prosecuting attorney, it seems like that should bump an opening up, down, to at least retain that position. But it's just something that comes to mind.
Good conversation, so.
Yep.
We'll give the budget presentation next Tuesday night. We didn't think ahead to have the meeting start early, so I will be most efficient in my presentation, but thorough as it needs to be. I think the budget's been a little more relevant this year than in past, so I think we're all pretty in tune to what's included in there.
Any further discussion on this draft? So we're taking that out of the draft right at this point.
So well, it'll live in that draft, but I'm gonna take it out for the presentation next Tuesday.
Okay.
And so then your contingency will be up more of 228,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item. Invoice list discussion. We have 1, 2 lists, August 2nd and August 9th. Take a quick couple of minutes and look at it for the final time.
Did have a question about the well path, the 20,457 reduction? Or refund or credit?
On August the 2nd.
Yep, that is something I believe I was. Sheriff or Jen will probably speak to it more, but it seems to be that, so that's our inmate medical contract that we have. And I believe on that invoice, it says it's like a quarterly true up of what
Or an
I think
adjustment.
actual costs, and I don't know what those are, if that's on medicines, on visits, I'm not sure what it is. But they bill it quarterly, and then it looks like they do an audit or some sort, and if there's a credit, it comes back to us.
Contractually, we're allowed so many of this, so many of those types of visits, and then like she said, they threw it up. Which is nice. Sometimes it goes in our favor.
I'm just not used to seeing
I know.
parentheses in these columns like that.
No.
I thought about it,
Me.
I wasn't sure if, does
Does
it go
it-
on there, does it not? It went on there.
Good news.
Both ways. Okay.
So when we have an individual booked into the jail, if they have private insurance, it comes with them, right? They don't lose their private insurance,
No, they don't.
but they lose if they're indigent, they lose their Medicare,
Yes.
even if it hasn't gone to trial yet. We have full responsibility to cover their medical
Medicaid.
Medicaid.
Medicaid. not
Medicaid.
Medicare.
or Medicaid, okay? So I know there's been some effort at the federal level to change that. I don't think it's gone anyplace yet. If a person has if they have their own insurance, they cover their own costs, correct?
I believe so.
And if somebody bonds out, even though they were arrested, if they bond out, we don't have that responsibility any longer because they're not housed with us.
Correct. They're not under our roof.
Okay. And we don't have any means to recover those costs in any way, or it depends on the person's ability to
It's
pay.
like a collections
judge.
type of situation.
Because we pay a
When
pretty
we
penny.
charge them, for their stay at our facility. I wonder if we I have no idea if we're charging them, we probably don't know the cost of it at the time when they're released, so I bet we aren't charging them for costs of medical during their stay. But I wonder if we can. Why couldn't we?
An interesting
We're gonna
concept.
find out, yeah, great question. Nothing to do with inmate medical, but it made me think about medical examiner contract to the end of this year with Sparrow. Sheriff and I are working on an RFP for medical examiner services, so we'll have another,
Options.
hopefully, some proposals to look at. I'm sure we'll be doing the same with inmate medical.
So you have any other questions about bills on the front page of either one of the lists or the other internal lesser bills?
Nope, nothing for me, sir.
Then we'll move these on to the work session for the final review. Announcements, commissioners, anything?
I know, I'm extremely happy that our millage renewals were passed by the voters. Very good to see, and greatly appreciated that we can move forward with county government and the various enterprise funds. Parks and Recreation, Isabella County Transportation can move forward. And our county can move forward financially.
We owe it. Thank you for everyone that voted, whether they voted for the millage or against the millage. And I know I watched the millage vote come in. And it was getting late and I was getting really despondent as I looked at, there was only one of the renewals that was passing by a small amount. Within the city and Union Township came in, which their vote was overwhelmingly in favor, so. Let me get a restful night's sleep.
That,
But
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was kind of disappointed in the overall, 32% or something of voter turnout for that. Seems like we would do better, but
Primary.
Usually.
great for the people that came out and voted one way or the other.
So that is why I don't stay up late on election night. I just go to bed and find out in the morning. And I did find out last Wednesday. It didn't take long to find out. And I do second that. Thank all the voters of Isabella County. I'm optimistic and hopeful, and now we can move forward.
Oh.
Anything else? We'll call to the public.
I'd like to make one clarification on the capital improvement request. Only put the one in because at budget time I was told there was to be none. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done in our buildings and our equipment here in the county. We haven't spent much money in the 10 years taking care of what we have. I mean, if you think about it, a $25 million project, 1% is $240 million. We haven't spent that except for that roof that was being repaired around the administration building. So there's still a lot out there that we need to take care of in the coming years.
So that's why that contingency needs to be built up. Yeah, we need to cover that.
We're gonna have to keep that in mind.
Well said.
Yeah, might as well go again. I just wanna remind you of the special consideration at the November 17th that you had said that you would give to the personnel requests in the 2024 budget. If they met the criteria in the Amy Cell wage classification study, the position from my office did meet the qualifications, was found to be a 7. If you come into the building where we're at now, you come in, you see 2 people sitting there working side by side doing the same job. One's paid at a level 8, the other's paid at a level 6. And that's been that way the whole time. They're doing the same job. We're just paying one at a level 6 and one at a level 8. So we need to make sure that we do give that special consideration moving forward. that was proven back. I got all the paperwork, proved that back in May of 2023. I do believe that the administrative assistant position for the Parks and Rec is also in that same position. And especially like in my office, going into next year, we're a mandated office and our staff is cut over 37%. We're gonna need that person. And so to cut or to not be paying that person, have that person underpaid, losing that position would be critical because how would we ever get anybody back in that position? And then the only other thing that I was gonna say is as far as the rebuilding of our county building, have we thought about doing some type of a building coalition because of where our building sits? The city has vested interest in what we do. And maybe they would be willing to participate in getting together, brainstorming, coming up with ideas. If they could help us, we have the DDT, there's Central Michigan, Mid-Michigan, Union Township, the tribe. Everybody is interested in seeing something come of that building. They're interested in us having a good future, and it's better for the whole community or the community as a whole if that and us are thriving. And so I think if there's any way that we could reach out into the community and work with them to make that happen, that would be great.
Okay. Other public comments?
Somebody else should talk.
Hearing none, meeting is adjourned.
All right.